even with these systems set up inside this closet is really hard to find stuff. Just anytime you have a limited capacity for something and you're trying to shove extra crap in there, it never bodes well. I mean, think of like a suitcase, right? It's already overweight, it's already off balance, and then you're going to try and stuff like 40 more things into that front zipper compartment because it's there, right? This is the kind of concept I want you to picture.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy, a Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison.
Well, greetings, compadres. So this is part 3 of a deep dive into the ADHD dungeon. And first, I want to say I'm not a doctor. What I am is a best-selling author. I'm a certified life coach and a meditation teacher and a variety of other things. But these are things that I share from my doctors, and then I share with my doctors about my life and specifics. And I kind of say, does this fit into ADHD? And if so, how do I live with this? What are some examples? What are some tools that I can use? Help a sister out kind of thing. And so I just want to be clear that these are life experiences, and I encourage you to talk to your doctor to, first of all, get a diagnosis if you feel like you may have mental health issues. And I didn't want you to think I'm on some jag of self-justification. This is all stuff that I've just vetted through professionals, but it's measured against my experience. That's all it is. And so wanted to be clear so that there aren't any questions about that. And I always recommend getting advice and help from a professional therapist or mental health doctor of some kind. And don't just listen to a podcast and think that that's truth for everybody. It's certainly not. So this is just my experience. So in the last couple episodes, what I did was I unpacked what it's like for me personally to live with ADHD. I told you why I'm passionate about talking about this. And I told you about my approach to treating my ADHD, which is what I call the kitchen sink approach. Throw everything at it that I possibly can. And we talked about how ADHD presents differently in girls as opposed to boys. And kind of those of us who are Generation X or North, how many of us were not diagnosed until later in life, and what that's like. So today, this is kind of the theme of part 3 today. I've just ended up organically kind of having to break it into these 3 parts because I get started talking and then there's too much. There's just too much to accomplish in one episode. And so I've been like, and it's been 45 minutes, time for the next episode. I'll come back to this. So this should be the very last episode of all of these. We shall see. So I thought what might be helpful is sharing some personal stories with you that I have experienced. And there are personal stories that I haven't shared anywhere else at any other time publicly, because quite frankly, they're just specific examples from my life that I faced, that I went through, that once I was diagnosed with ADHD and was able to reflect back, I could see, oh, maybe that was, and put the pieces together, right? Because prior to getting a diagnosis, For me, it was like I had all of these puzzle pieces floating in outer space, seemingly with no rhythm, no cadence to them, just a bunch of random misfit pieces. And when I got diagnosed, it was like, oh, this all makes sense, or at least more sense than it did before. And I talked last time about the ping pong game between depression, depression, anxiety, because I would be terribly afraid that I was going to mess up some detail, some deadline, and that would make me depressed because I would try so hard to not mess it up. Or if I did mess it up, I would be like, oh my gosh, see, I'm just a worthless piece of crap. All right, let me get into it. So I used to belong to this organization, and this was in my church days. So I had two little babies, and there was this organization where essentially you would go to this chapter at a church. They would hold different chapters. And what it was there was a setup and a schedule for volunteer nursery workers. And it was kind of like a co-op. So what you would have to do is they would assign you a day, or you picked a day, I can't remember which, but you would, commit to doing the childcare on that particular day. And then the other days, and I don't want to name the organization, I'm not trying to throw it under the bus, but and it was great. It served a wonderful purpose anyway. This is not anything negative about them. So if you know the organization that I'm talking about, it's fine. And so the other days where you weren't in the nursery, but somebody else was watching your kids, another mother of the organization, you would go into the church community hall, fellowship hall, and they would provide a speaker who would talk on various topics, parenting, motherhood. You would do a craft, which I always thought was kind of strange, but I heard later that that was to help you feel a sense of accomplishment as a mother, which I think is great. And creativity, get your sort of creative juices flowing, kind of have an outlet for that. And so that's what the whole deal was. And okay, so here you go, you've got your date, right? Of when you're going to go into the nursery and do your childcare. And I can't remember exactly how this unfolded, but on my day that I was supposed to go into the nursery and do the childcare, I had no idea that it was my day. So I don't know if I wrote the wrong day down. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just spaced out. I don't know if I was ever maybe even told what it was. Somehow it was missed that the particular day made it into my calendar and my brain. Okay. Now, this is before the days of Sign Up Genius or any of those software programs that we have today with multiple confirmations and text messages and email reminders. In fact, this was kind of like before everybody was carrying a smartphone. But I digress now because, yeah, those were different times. And I probably had, I don't know, like a day runner or some kind of a Franklin Covey. If any of you remember that, it was like this calendar that had quotes that were supposed to motivate you to organize your life and have control over your schedule and all this. And I like totally bought into all of those hook, line, and sinker because I was like, well, this is going to help me. I had no idea that I had raging ADHD. And I'm like, yeah, let me just buy another calendar. Seems right. But then you buy the Franklin Covey and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a piece of crap because not even this is helping me. But back to the story. What I do remember distinctly is after the meeting on the particular day. So I'm sitting in there with the rest of the ladies, drinking coffee, having a coffee cake, whatever it was. Um, and I went to pick up my two babies from the nursery. And what had happened was I found out when I picked up my kids that somebody else had to pick up the slack and do my shift for me because they were short a person. And then my leader, my table group leader, approached me and was basically like, somebody else had to step in to your shift, Amy, because you did not go. And I remember just feeling like I was sitting in the principal's office and I just had this horrible feeling of like, oh my gosh, this lady thinks I'm elite, thinks I think I'm above everybody else and I don't have to do my shift. And it was so embarrassing. And it just knocked my self-esteem. And I just remember thinking, yeah, there it is. Like I am a piece of junk. And, it's interesting reflecting on it now because they let me sit there through the meeting and nobody went up and like tapped me on the shoulder, said, hey, did you forget today's your day to be in the nursery? Right. And so, unbeknownst to me, I'm just enjoying myself. And then I get shamed afterward. So I just remember feeling positively mortified. Just this lady's chewing me out. I've got my two little babies who are now tired, wanting to go home to eat and have a nap. And I just thought, gosh, this lady thinks I'm some self-aggrandizing, entitled person. And I scooped up the babies. I'm mortified, red-faced. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. And I went to drive home and I just cried the whole way. I just felt so embarrassed, so terrible. And, it was one example of so many, right? Where I couldn't get my shit together. That day was just another log on the fire for my draining self-esteem. And I 100% now know that that was ADHD, and I had no idea at the time. Sometimes I think about, gosh, if I would have been diagnosed already, at least I could have reframed that situation and I could have said, oh, okay, I know what to do here. I know what this is. I know what's going on. And I would have at least been able to approach myself with some grace and not been so condescending with myself and shaming and shaming myself because the lady shamed me, right? I would have been able to just kind of sit there and realize, all right, this is my ADHD. I missed a detail. It was a big deal. I'm going to own it and I'm going to apologize to that woman. And I just couldn't get there because I didn't know what it was. Excuse my voice. I don't know. This happens to me. It happened to my grandmas too. But one of my grandmas was even worse than what you're hearing now as far as my voice is concerned. And so, yikes. I don't know what the future holds. Sorry about this. I guess because I haven't talked that much today, haven't spoken a lot. The second example I want to give you is very recent. I'm talking in the past like 6 weeks. Okay. So what I'm realizing now is that there are some things, particularly when it comes to motivation and ADHD inattentive type. So if you have inattentive type, this is for you. All right. I think you might resonate with at least some of this. So I have a closet. Actually, I had a closet, past tense, that looked like an episode from Hoarders, the TV show. It was trashed. And I don't mean it was trashed like there was garbage in there, But let me just explain it to you and you'll understand. I had gained some weight during COVID, during the pandemic. Sorry, I'm not sure if we're supposed to say that word. I don't know how these things work anymore. But anyway, I had in 2020, okay, I had gained a bunch of weight, and I had gained weight to the point where I was like a 29.9 on that stupid body mass index chart. But truly, I was borderline obese, or at least according to that chart, I was, because all I did was stress eat, right? I had like 5 bowls of Lucky Charms every single day. And so over the past 2 decades, really, if you look at the grand scheme of things, I had every size of clothing in my closet from a size 0 to a size 16 because I had been pregnant and gaining and losing weight for the better part of 20 years. Okay. And so I have this fear that if I gain or lose any weight, I will have nothing to wear. And that fear is based on truth because that has happened to me before. So recently, like in the fall, I realized because I had started to lose some of that weight from 2020, actually all of that weight from 2020, that I had nothing to wear. If you think about this, it's like I had maternity clothes, then I had postpartum clothes for those in between stages. I had all these different sizes, and my closet looked like it was some kind of a thrift store. Okay. It was just packed with all different sizes. And my actual square footage of my closet is not small, but it's not a full department store size. Okay. There's not 3 levels with escalators and a bunch of boutiques for shoes and outerwear and different ways that you can organize things. What it is sort of like is an L-shaped closet. And so you go into it from my bathroom, and basically you have to take a right turn and then a left turn. And so the closet kind of lines this L shape with rods and drawers and shelves and kind of your normal closet layout, but just in a weird shape. Essentially, what happens then is you reach another door when you get to the end of my closet, and that door opens to the laundry room. So, I mean, I get the whole design and how somebody would have thought this is a great idea. This is innovative. You can go through the closet to get to the laundry room. And it's kind of like the secret passageway from the conservatory to the lounge. If you've ever played Clue, that's what it was like. And so oh, sorry, I don't know how to turn off my notifications after my system updates, my entire computer system updates. And so we go through a few days of this, of notifications popping up on my computer. And then I remember, oh yeah, I have to go and reset all of that. It's a wonderful part of ADHD. So another great example. All right, so back to my closet. Here I am with this weird layout in my current closet. I mean, so many clothes packed in there. And what's funny is they were organized. I mean, I had everything laid out according to size, according to sleeve length, according to color. I even had those little plastic hanger things that would go on the rods to indicate what was there on that rod. So I didn't have to do a ton of digging, and so that other people could find things when they needed to borrow something or grab something. And so, I mean, I did have a great skeleton of a system. It was just really hard to get it all laid out in a way that worked for that closet because, a closet wasn't really built to house that many sizes, right? Like no closet is really built for that. And so I'd have like clothes, sort of hanging precariously out of drawers. You couldn't really fully close the drawers. I had storage compartment things that I'd sort of MacGyvered. And I was constantly stressed about this because you can imagine, even with these systems set up, inside this closet is really hard to find stuff. Just anytime you have a limited capacity for something and you're trying to shove extra crap in there, it never bodes well. I mean, think of like a suitcase, right? It's already overweight, it's already off balance, and then you're going to try and stuff like 40 more things into that front zipper compartment because it's there, right? This is the kind of concept I want you to picture. So there was a lot of mental stress involved in this closet, is what I'm trying to explain. Now, to the normal brain, the obvious solution is take a weekend and clear it, right? Clear everything on your calendar and clear the closet. Maybe get some help on board, get some of your kids to help you go through all that stuff, sort it into a donation pile and a, giveaway pile, whatever. But really, I know this comes from a sense of fear of lack, but there was something about it. I could not get rid of all those clothes. And I do know what it is. As I just mentioned a little bit before, I have been in that situation where it's like, oh, it is almost as if I have gained weight overnight. And usually that is a pregnancy or a hormone related thing. And so, all right, so I've got some tubs, right? So I've labeled these tubs and now I'm going to slowly, take some clothes off over the weekend and put these tubs in. Or, the normal brain figures out this isn't working and I need to do something about it. And here's what I should do, a good 48 hours and this will be done, right? But it was like strangely more than that. Imagine walking into this closet and it's like ground zero. It's like this total war zone. But for some reason, and it's causing mental stress and you can feel it. But for some reason, something in me, that sense of lack, that sense of fear, was not allowing me to start this project. Well, that's not true. I would start it, but I would never complete it. In fact, I would make very little headway on it. I had started the project multiple times, but I'd get tubs, I'd get garbage bags, I'd get rolling. But when you sort of catch fire with something and you can't stop, won't stop until it's done? That never happened with this closet over the 5 years that we've lived in this house. I tried it probably seasonally at a minimum and more like 6 times a year at a maximum. I just kind of kept trying to get started, right? To really start it, like not just start it, but start it and finish it to completion, right? So here's where the rubber met the road for me, where it really got bad. This closet became so overwhelming to me that now you're stepping over tubs and garbage bags where I've started the project and not completed the project. So now I have 2 mental reminders, mental and visual reminders every day. A, I cannot find anything to wear because my closet is too packed. And B, now I'm stepping over tubs and garbage bags every day. And so it's 2 reminders that I'm a piece of crap. I can't start a project and finish it. I can't seem to organize this space to completion. And now I'm reminded that I can't even do that once I get started, I can't finish it. So there's like this whole other layer of frustration. Then comes a 3rd layer of frustration. My kids were walking back and forth because for some reason, our bathroom and our shower is like the preferred toilet and the preferred shower. I don't know. So everybody would shower in our shower. And then usually they would just dump their clothes on the floor of my bathroom, right? Until we started being like, no, we can't have your messes too. You need to walk these to the laundry room. So they would walk through my closet, and it was like traversing a death trap trying to get to the laundry room, right? It was messed up. Okay. So it's like this, ball of yarn. Somebody's going to like break their leg, right? Like trying to walk to my laundry room. And so everybody else in the house who used my bathroom or cut through that closet for any reason would see my mess. And that was a whole nother level of shame, right? So I'm irritated that I can never find anything. Then I've got tubs and garbage bags on the floor reminding me that I can never start and finish a project and see it through to completion. And now everybody else can see it when they're walking through. And so I had just a daily battle with myself and, started kind of playing the whole game of like, well, I just need a new California closet system. I need this, I need that, like everything else, that you could possibly think of to help with the problem, but it wasn't helping with the problem because the root was I actually just needed the shit out of there. That's what I needed, And so I've got this octopus with like a bunch of tentacles on it of shame. And the octopus is my closet with all of these deeper level meanings attached to it. And I could see it, right? I could see it. But then instead of like having a reasonable solution present itself to me, and I realize now, even looking back on the past 6 weeks to 5 years, what I needed was to like process through this. Because there was another tentacle that was kind of buried under this whole closet and how it represented these different tentacles of shame. And so that other sort of tentacle, that other kind of layer was the expectations of females. Okay. So the size expectation of a woman who is an executive's wife, who is of a certain demographic, of a certain age, who society kind of tells us in this day and age and in this position in life that we're not supposed to, quote, let ourselves go. And so there was that, right? And so there's me working through that kind of like in the back of my mind that I didn't even realize until I actually did another fourth step on all of this, because I couldn't really figure out like what the hell is going on with me. And sometimes I will do all that stuff and I still don't get an answer, a clear one, and that's okay. But so sitting back there in my brain was this whole feminism thing, and the fact that if I got an invitation to something, let's say at my husband's work, I will ask my husband, what's the dress code? And he would say like, oh, I don't know. Let me find out. Because for him, it never changes. The dress code here on the West Coast is pretty much whatever for the guys in terms of a button-down shirt and some business pants is kind of their uniform. So they don't ever have to worry about, oh, and then there's sometimes like jacket and tie optional, but that shit you can keep in your car or at the office. That's just kind of like, oh, I'll just throw that on if it's a little dressier than I anticipated, right? But for us women, it's this whole thing. It's like, well, what do we wear? Because, especially those of us who have been buried in the stay-at-home mom hovel for the past 20 years, we have no idea what the hell business casual means. And what does it mean in the tech world? And what does it mean in 2024? And what does it mean? There's never an example of like, this is what you should wear. Like somebody needs to come up with like a Pinterest board. This is the example of what this means for your husband or your spouses or your partners or your industry at this day and age at such a time as this. Like, it's just so confusing for women, I mean, we're just confused enough trying to get out of our athletic wear, but try and put in like an outfit together, right? I mean, that's just crazy, especially as we're aging. I've actually overheard women say about other women, oh, that skirt is too short for somebody her age, or she shouldn't go sleeveless for somebody her age. I just can't, I don't know. What are the rules? What do you mean? I read something the other day that square fingernails, which is what I wear, are totally outdated. They date you. And so unless you have coffin or oval shaped nails, you're dated, you're showing your age. And I'm like, oh, well, gosh, I had no idea. Would it change the way I do my nails today? I don't know. I don't like oval and I don't like coffin, so maybe not. But my point is bigger, right? My point is that we don't know what is expected of us today. And so that's a whole nother level of clothing madness, of clothing mayhem that goes on in our lives. We just really, we don't know what is acceptable anymore. I don't know. I'll speak for myself. I don't really know what a casual ensemble is anymore. Women, our age shouldn't have long hair. I said screw that at one point because it's so easy because I can just throw it in a ponytail. There are all these rules for us that don't apply to men. My husband's side of the closet is suits, golf shirts, a couple of pairs of jeans, a pair of khakis or, kind of casual pants, and a tuxedo for gala events. That's it. Hey, friend, he just pops whatever shit on that he wants to. And for some reason, guys get a pass. Have you noticed that? Like, they just get a pass. It's like nobody notices, oh, so and so isn't dressed appropriately for his age. Like, there is no such thing as dressed appropriately for your age. Maybe as a dude, anyway. Maybe like if you saw a 75-year-old guy in like ripped jeans or something, maybe people would have some comments. But generally speaking, they just get away with so much more, right? So this resentment was tangled up in my brain, right? About how women in society are expected to look and be and show up, and how we're not given any exact direction on that expectation from society, but apparently we're supposed to have like a crystal ball to figure it out, right? So having all of these layers of clothing difficulties, right? I remember even getting rid of, sidebar, my quote clubbing clothes, unquote. Not that I was ever a huge club goer, but like my drinking, sort of mom's night out clothes. I had to get rid of all of those. And that was like 2/3 of my closet at the time. So, I had all of this stuff entangled. I realized that I had attached a lot of meaning to a lot of things. Like if I really let go of this small size, it's admitting that I'm never going back to it, right? So the whole weight thing, the weight fluctuation, that takes me back to the 90s, eating Snackwell's cookies by the container for dinner at that time. I mean, it was just all of this unhealthy stuff, right? That has been just tangled in many of our brains forever since we were teenagers, right? Eating disorder or disordered eating thought patterns since we were very young, right? That dudes tend not to suffer as much with. And so getting rid of those fat clothes this most recent time was really difficult for me, really difficult. And I think because mostly it felt like old tapes. My husband can gain a spare tire, get a bigger pair of jeans, and no big deal. There's nothing mentally attached to it. It doesn't affect his self-worth. It doesn't affect how he thinks about himself. There's, of course, this whole stereotype of the silver fox, right? The George Clooney, oh, look, as men age, they get more distinguished. They look so handsome. But for us women, of course, we look frumpy and non-attractive. We get dumped on our asses. I'm not talking about me personally, but the stereotype, the generalization is there because it happens. We get dumped on our asses and traded in for a younger model, right? All of that. And so, God bless my husband. He has a ton of empathy, but he just can't understand the full scope of this. And that's okay because he's not a woman. It is not his fault. And I'm really grateful that he has the perspective to really imagine what it's like to be in women's shoes. So I want to be clear, I'm not coming down on him, nor am I complaining, but I just do want to point out that the differences are there. So I am trying to explain this is a complexity that is a female thing and an ADHD thing, right? To have had weight issues your whole life, to have been on that weight spectrum of gaining and losing, that whole yo-yo dieting thing just really makes you feel like a loser. And then ADHD making you feel like, oh, I can't get my shit together. And now it's spotlighted because everybody sees it when they walk through my closet. All of this was swirling for me, and unpacking it during a fourth step. I can't say it shed a ton of light on things, but at least I could point to some concluding thoughts about this, right? All right. So I want to say this. I keep sort of alluding to this day 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, it happened. It was a public holiday. It could have been a full moon. Something lunar could have been going on. I have no idea, but the stars aligned. And I was somehow suddenly motivated to do this. I had the ambition, I had the ability and the wherewithal that day to walk into my closet and just go, today's the day. I can't pinpoint where it came from, but I cleaned out that closet to completion, where I can tell you that I can still today have a surprise visit. You could swing into my place today and walk through my closet, and you're not stepping over totes or garbage bags. And there are no clothes hanging out of the drawers. The clothes aren't packed in so tightly that you can't even move hangers. I don't know what came over me, but I was like, this ends today. It was very supernatural. And the only thing that really stands out in my mind is being different on that day. And it's not even enough of something to really say, oh, there's the answer, right? This is what it is, and point to it. But I know it had something to do with the fact that for whatever reason on that particular day, I was not judging myself. Now, I don't know why, because I usually am. It's like my default factory settings are to judge myself, and I need to talk my way out of it and remind myself, all right, you have ADHD, you have mental health issues. These aren't your fault. These aren't your problem, but it is your problem to, make sure you're treating it. It's your responsibility, blah, blah, blah. It was if that did not exist on that day. It was like I didn't even have the battle of negative thoughts and shaming thoughts that day. It was very strange. It was a temporary relief from that battle every day that I face in my brain. Because as I mentioned, I had plenty of other times when I had started this project, felt motivated in the moment, but just became overwhelmed. Even with help, became overwhelmed. I don't know what happened, but I cleaned it. It was like that phrase that you see from time to time these days, like she woke up and handled it or something. It was like that. And I'm here to tell you now, I can cognitively say to myself, all right, that was it. That was the key. The key was not judging myself. And then the next time I'm faced with any kind of other random giant mess with the same emotional and mental attachments to it, I can just say to myself, no, 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 I'm not going to shoot myself today. I'm not going to, you know, go through this battle. I'm just going to choose not to judge myself. It's not the same. I don't know. There was something about that day where I was organically not judging myself and shaming myself. And I don't know why. Throw in there any comments, theories, ideas about how to organically get to that spot, and I'm here for it, but I don't know of any conclusions that I can point to that got me there, really. And I'm still kind of pondering this, and I think it may reveal itself over time and it may not. But I think what it is that when I was telling myself not to judge and shame myself, it was still there because I was still kind of focused on it. I still had to tell myself not to judge and shame myself, right? So it was still on my brain. And so, therefore, by nature of the fact that I'm having to tell myself not to judge and shame myself, I'm thinking about it, right? And it's like, there's the example, there's like the proof that I'm always dealing with it because I have to tell myself, don't focus on it, you know? Which I think is what starts the spiral in my brain. And so I bring this up because answers on how to solve this for myself are not always easy to find. They are elusive. It is okay not to have an answer, but it is also still my responsibility to notice this, write about it, and just go, all right, that was interesting. That was interesting that one day when I really naturally wasn't judging and shaming myself, boom, it got done. Right? So having gone from, many instances as a kid, having the whole, you're never going to amount to anything, you're not working up to your full potential, being told to me by so many people. Why are you always behind? Right? Having gone from that to having that narrative replaced with, I know what I'm working with here, but it doesn't mean it's totally gone. I mean, we're talking about undoing 4 decades of twisted thinking, right? It's been explained to me a few times that negative experiences are kind of like Velcro in your brain. They really stick in your brain, whereas positive ones are kind of like Teflon. They just fly right out as fast as they come in. And that makes sense to me. And the sort of final example of this is Mrs. Tilley, this librarian that we had in school. I remember being in the library during library time, and I was coloring a coloring page, and I must have been in second grade. And I'm just loving life, coloring this coloring page my way, the way I wanted to do it. And she walks over and she says to me, can't you color in the lines? And she said it in this really condescending manner, at least from my perception. And it's like, no wonder we have poor self-esteem. No wonder we can't clean out our closet unless we feel no judgment, because we've been judged our whole lives, right? And so we naturally are going to reach for coping mechanisms, dopamine, shopping, alcohol, whatever, because we just want to escape from this inner turmoil and torture, right? So conclusion is the conclusion, a conclusion, multiple conclusions, whatever you want to call it, some tools and solutions. So, speaking of like having dealt with this for 40 years and beyond, let me just explain some of the ways that this is played out in my life and what a tool has been. And really for me, in the simplest way I can explain it with, I've given these examples now. If I'm going to take it kind of macro and not micro, it's easiest to find your keys if you turn on the light. So if you understand what you're dealing with and you get a diagnosis, you know what the problem is, you are then empowered to be able to live with it and to have all these magical solutions present themselves to you that aren't going to boom, make your life amazing, but it's just, it takes a little bit of air out of that balloon of shame. And you go, this is the ADHD. This is the way my brain works. And that's coping with it in a positive way. That is reframing it in a positive way. Do I always instantly feel better? No. Do I get sick and tired of dealing with this? Yes. But another tool is if I throw in my kitchen sink approach and I really just deal with it using all the things, 12-step meetings, all the freaking time, at least 2 per day, and therapists, multiple therapists and doctors talking about it all the time. Another tool is talking about it with others who have ADHD, right? Also, I'm of service. I get into action. So I'm talking about mental health and behavioral health all the time, every day. Another tool is listening to podcasts about it, reading books, anything that helps me to remember that I'm not alone. And this is my final point, is that all of these tools, and I've left out journaling, but I have a very specific way of journaling that I will share on another podcast coming up because it's just too much for one. But we have options, we have tools, we have solutions, and we have, things where we can take a combination of all of the above and throw the kitchen sink at our ADHD. Maybe it's undealt with trauma. Maybe it's like the old fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea, whatever it is, you just keep digging up those mattresses until you get to the pea. And sometimes it doesn't make sense why that pea was there, but you can take it out, right? So when we're not alone, we realize that this profound sense of loneliness that has affected our self-worth and self-esteem and sense of I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough goes away just enough to remind us that there is beauty in my mess, that my mess is beautiful. This is me. It's who I am. And it's okay. It is empowering to know that I can love myself, that even when I have tools and I use them all and I still can't clean out my closet, that it's okay because I am not alone. I am not alone on this whirling ball of mud and water. There are others out there dealing with the same thing. And it may show up in similar ways or different ways. They may have the same tools. They may have different tools. But there is so much beauty. We all struggle with different things. And there are millions of people out there who would gladly switch places with me and whatever it is that I'm dealing with today. Right? And so on that note, we're just going to accept that we've attached meaning to some of these things along life's path. We're going to find our superpower in our diagnosis. And we're going to say, you know what? It's okay that I don't feel great about it, that I'm judging myself, that I'm judging myself for judging myself. It's okay. We're not alone. So remember to be kind, rewind. Thank you for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. You can keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.